So in this segment, we're going to be discussing a Tory spin merchant trying to claim that things are going to improve under the Conservatives and that they've got a whole host of tax cuts coming up.
People are telling me that their mortgages are coming down.
How
the
can
energy
People's mortgages aren't coming down, though, because that doesn't literally... That's just a lie off the bat, because the Bank of England haven't cut the rates. So if you're on a variable mortgage, your mortgage really won't be coming down. If you're on a fixed... if you're on a variable rate, your mortgage payments wouldn't really be going down because the interest rate hasn't been cut. So that literally doesn't make any sense.
prices are coming down.
How can you...
So I think we are starting to see the economy turn around.
How can you say that you're cutting taxes when taxes are going up?
Because in our manifesto, we set out a number of taxes. We set out tax cuts for people who are working and employed.
The overall tax burden is going up. That's the numbers. That's the empirical truth, right?
There are two key points. We are cutting individual taxes for a number
But you admit the tax burden's going up.
Well, let me deal with that in a minute, but I think it's really important to emphasise...
Let me do all my spin first, and then I will not answer your question.
That what we've announced today in the manifesto is a tax cut for people who are employed, building on in terms of the national insurance cuts, building on what we've already set out. We've got tax cuts, which you refer to, for the self-employed. We've got tax cuts for pensioners, saying the state pension will never be taxed.
And I think the irony is that it was David Cameron that actually introduced a tax on pensioners. So one Tory Prime Minister is going to revoke the actions of another recent Tory Prime Minister is nuts.
And we've also got tax cuts for families. When you talk about, because I do want to answer the point that Ed talked about, in terms of tax burden overall, it was projected to be at a certain level. What we are announcing today is a tax cut of 1% year on year.
It's still going up, though. It's still going up.
Sophie, I think everybody understands.
Just acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it.
Okay.
It sounds like you're just evading it.
That's a debate tactic there when you say everybody agrees or everyone understands. You use that tactic to make the other person feel like they don't know what they're talking about, like they're the outsider.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely not evading it. I think we need to be honest with people. And the honesty that we need to remind people of are the things I started with. We spent £400
Be honest with
billion
people
pounds.
then. Be honest with people. Our taxes are still projected to go up under your plans. The overall tax burden.
We spent £400 billion.
No, you said you want to be honest with people. This is your chance.
Well,
That's right, isn't it?
So the projections at the moment show that tax levels will be X. And the result of the manifesto is that year on year on year on year, what we have managed to do is reduce that tax burden so that it will come down.
That's not correct. The tax burden is projected to go up.
I think it's going up to about 30. I think it's 38%. Which, you know, she's refusing to answer the question here. And I think what you got to do in this situation is give the answer that you have to make the minister look stupid. I think it's about 38%. The tax burden is set to go up to for the country.
Well, what you saw from Ed's chart...
So I just remembered I had this clip. This is what Ed was talking about, Ed Conway.
That blue bit is tax cuts. Does this mean that the tax burden, the overall amount that we're paying, is going to be lower at the end of the next Parliament? Well, let's have a look at it. OK, so this is the tax burden. And this is really important because this is all of the taxes that we pay, not just income tax, not just national insurance, VAT, everything, corporation tax, as a percentage of GDP. And what you can see here is going all the way back to...
My guy talks so fast, I love it. You know, capital gains, all of that would be in here.
1948, so very high after the war. It came down, it's bounced around, and it's been mostly within this kind of range. But post-pandemic, it's come up a lot, post-energy price shock as well. And look at how high it is at the moment. The ongoing plan, so the plans right now from the government...
He's frozen.
...see it going even higher, so getting up to the highest level that we've seen since the 1940s. Does that change as a result of this manifesto? The short answer is yes, it does, but maybe not as much as many Tories would like. Because look at how that line actually changes. That's what happens to the tax burden as a result of those tax cuts you've just seen. There is a difference between what the kind of profile was going to be and where we might head if those plans are implemented. That's £17.2 billion worth of tax cuts. But it's not quite enough to see that line go down. It's going up, isn't it?
And this is where, you know, members of the... like, people that are watching this will notice it. It's not a lot. And they'll put out the big number. They say, oh, we're doing millions of pounds of tax cuts or whatever. You see this, it's not much, especially when you compare it to the 1940s.
Still going up. And actually, if we draw a line between the final year of next Parliament and all the way back in the 1940s, that is a new 80-year high. So,
and, you know, in the 1940s, where our debt to GDP ratio was around double what it is now, 200%, right? And you still had massive house building projects. You still had the creation of the NHS. Now, this tax burden is at near, you know, pretty much around that level of the 1940s. What are we getting for the amount of tax we're paying? Nothing.
So even after those tax cuts we've just talked about, even after all of that, the UK will still see its overall tax burden.
Look at that projected number there under the Conservatives. That's pretty much level with the highest tax burden since World War II. It's about level with that 37% figure. It's crazy that, you know, this is how much, you know, kind of tax people are paying, you know, this amount. And what do we get back for it? Bad NHS, bad policing. It's just astonishing.
All of us will still be paying higher taxes at the end of next Parliament than we are now. That's the key point here.
And this is why, you know, analysis like this is worth its weight in gold, because what you have here is the numbers put into context. This is the stuff I can't do. This is genuinely the stuff I cannot do. Give you the context of these numbers. And that's why people like Conway, people like Ben Chu are invaluable to the space, because journalists let people get away with just touting big numbers. This is context. So when they say the tax burden's going down, he's put it in a graph. It's not going down by much. So this is invaluable stuff. When you see the level paid in the 1940s versus now, it's just so close. And, you know, when you look at the state of the country, you know, what post World War II, this country was decimated. Like, there were a lot more problems in the country, but even still, Attlee borrowed money and managed to get the country moving again. And you can see that tax burden come down. Under the Conservatives, it's going to stay stagnant. It's just, these guys don't know what they're doing. They don't know, and they've absolutely ruined the economy. You pay more in tax for worse services. Honestly, you can see why the social contract in England is completely broken. And I say England specifically because in Scotland they do pay higher taxes, but they do get better benefits from it. And that's what I think people in England want to see. They're more than happy, I think, to pay slightly higher in taxes, but what they really want is better services. But anyways, on to the rest of the Ridge video.
Was the gap...
no, I'm not talking about the gap. I'm talking about the overall tax burden is projected to go up.
What Ed's chart showed was that we've managed to find tax cuts from what the position would otherwise be, and I think it's really important to state
it's going up less quickly, but it's still going up.
It's going to come down by 1% year on year from what it was projected to be. And the important thing...
And the thing is, like, given the fact that the IFS said there's a massive budgetary black hole coming up in a few years' time, you're talking, they project to be around 19 billion. How are the Tories going to pay for this tax cut? Because they always talk about the fiscal rules and how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Right? How are they going to pay for these tax cuts when the IFS are talking about a potential fiscal black hole? And also the fact that I don't think people want tax cuts based on polling. What they want is better services. I think people are happy to pay more money for better services, and the Tories just aren't delivering on that. You know, what use is you know, a couple £100 extra a year when you still can't see a GP, or when you have to go private to see a GP? That's going to cost you money. Private surgery going to cost you money. Your house gets robbed. Police don't do anything. Overstretched. Cost you money. People, I think, like, as much as people would like a tax cut, what people really want is better services. And that's where the Conservatives are faltering here, because all they see is tax cuts are instant cash in the wallet. They don't get it. People really need better services.
Thing is, the really important thing, Sophie, is that Labour are not offering any of those tax cuts, and instead of that, they are offering tax rises. So people...
They're not doing tax rises. Not on... Well, based on what they're saying, on depending on if you believe them or not, they're not offering tax rises. But the other thing is, like, with the national insurance cut, like, you do benefit somewhat, but some people lose out. If you're making less than 15k, you actually lose £300 a year from the national insurance cut, because you end up paying more in income tax. And that's the thing the Tories, like, they think they're sneaky with it, but people notice it in their pay packet. You know, they'll be paying more in income tax. It doesn't really help. That's one of the big problems we're running into. It's the fiscal drag effect, where you pay less in national insurance, but because your total income goes up, you pay more in income tax. It's ridiculous, honestly. The fact that, you know, she kept trying to lie. She basically lied and kept saying, okay, I'll answer your question in a moment. Didn't answer it. And in that situation, you have to give the audience the answer.
Taxes will go up by at least £2,000 if they vote
The 2K lie, we've debunked that.
for Labour and we get a Labour government. And I think that is a
We'll
really
talk-
important
we will-
distinction
we will-
to make between our manifesto and what we're going to hear from the Labour
We
Party.
will talk about the Labour Party plans later, including when they publish their manifesto, and also with Darren Jones later on the programme as well.
That's a dereliction of duty right there. Like, the 2K tax thing is a lie. And so Ridge should have called that out as a lie. That is, that's poor. That's poor interviewing there. Derbyshire would not get away with a lie like that. Krishnam Gurumurthy, he would not have let this minister get away with a lie like that. The Cabinet, excellent work by Sophie Ridge. This is third tier interview skills at best. Struggling with words here. Awful. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.